Okay, Pacific Rim Uprising. Ironically, when like the 90s, there was a phrase that was called sucky sequelitis. It's where you had an original film that's pretty good, and then the sequel came out relatively close after, and it was still good, but not as good as the original. And it's Pacific Rim Uprising. You don't just have robots fighting kaiju, or Jaegers fighting kaiju. So it's not just robots fighting monsters. Robots fighting monsters. Robots fighting robots. Why? Because there's still the drift compatibility piece, so it's like, but we don't want two people piloting these giant robots, okay? Instead, you can pilot them remotely. Okay? But those two companies kind of get into fights over who has the more superior giant monster killing technology. Okay. A different way to take it. They do enough to make it work well. They bring in enough of the characters from the first film to make it work. I'm just going to call him the Stormtrooper, because that's my nomads. I'm spacing out his name because it's like Boyega. Solid job. It's pretty much he and the younger female lead. Everyone else, either you saw from a previous film or they're just kind of stock. They get along fairly well. You already kind of know what their character arcs are. It is weird having him start off as, yeah, you know, my dad was Idris Elba in the first film. Okay. So what? You're probably like some awesome pilot. No, I'm a scrapper. Oh, sure, scrapper turned chosen one. Okay. Sounds like a familiar story arc from a previous film not that long ago. And then, of course, the female lead ends up being a 15-year-old who has her own robot, who's kind of plucky. I was like, wait a minute. This subplot's effectively the Bumblebee movie coming out like near Christmas time. But she does a very good job. And, you know, the basic premise of the film, of course, is, again, you have the kaiju showing up, and, of course, they're, again, trying to wipe out the world. This time they actually use, the MacGuffin, or effectively the main plot point in this one, actually requires the use of the phrase Pacific Rim. Roll credits. Overall, not a bad film, but you can tell when I was reading about them rebooting Hellboy, kind of a tangent, but not really, they mentioned you really can't continue doing a Guillermo del Toro universe without Guillermo del Toro helming the creature creation. And the kaiju look good in this one, but when you watch the first one and you saw the creatures, it was like, that's obviously a rhino with other things added to it. It's, you know, it's something that you're used to seeing, but other stuff added to it. Or that's obviously, you know, like a crocodile, alligator sort of creature with more stuff added to it. And this one you see them, you're like, okay, that's random alien creature. It kind of lacks that familiarity that Del Toro is good with doing, where he throws in either a form or a pattern or look makes you go, I think it's made out of wood. And there's just enough of that to make you think, okay, this looks like something that I've already seen, kind of. So Del Toro's going to put that little bit of familiarity into a creature that's entirely brand new. Where in this one, the creature is entirely brand new, but they just feel really foreign and alien. Not alien in a good way, because in the first one, the creatures seemed like what they did was, instead of being like, oh, here's the creature that's coming from another universe, it was more of, or dimension, it was more of, we've studied your planet, and we're taking some of the forms and making adjustments to them. This one's just like, oh, here's a random creature. When it comes to the newer Jaegers, you still have Gypsy Avenger. So if you liked the way that character was designed, the with the giant arm blades. And the gravity cannon, which I use a lot of, which is really cool. That's then combined with the lighter robot with two effectively lightsabers that can join to make one lightsaber. Another one that has a laser whip. Okay. And then the one that, I don't know if it's short of the stick or not, but got the giant ball and chain. So if you remember in the trailer, there's a scene where there's like these four of them facing against this one massive villain. That is the four you get to see at the end of the film. So I don't think I'm spoiling much if I describe things that you obviously see from the trailers. Overall, not as good as the first one, but the first one's fantastic. They do some callbacks to the first one that are sufficient to kind of go, that's clever. I still prefer the first one to this one. It's a good sequel, definitely a worthy sequel, and they do end it with enough to make you be like, you know what? This makes enough money. We'll do a third one. All in all, I dug it, but it's hard to not dig giant robots fighting either giant robots or giant robots fighting giant monsters. I mean, that's effectively Voltron, Ultraman, all of the Power Rangers that showed us on the USA Network, where it was like the four teenagers who combined their wrists in a weird way and became a giant knight, like radioactive tattooed teenagers, Beverly Hills, something random like that. I mean, there's so many shows where that's the premise. Giant robot fights giant robot, or giant robots and giant monsters. That's Toho. Yeah, there are more monsters versus monsters, but still it's the same concept. It's this giant over-the-top battle. And the final battle where I'm really glad that they were able to evacuate that full city. Like throwing buildings at this creature. I'm like, well, I'm glad that they weren't. We know you're seeing these giant monsters everywhere. Leave the city. I'm going to stay. If you stay, you're dead. I mean, we're having giant monsters and we're having giant robots who are not going to care at all about the random human on the street because their job is to kill the giant monster. You've been told. So, I dug it.